If you push your body to its absolute limit, whether you're a pro athlete or, just someone who's really consistent at the gym, you learn one thing really fast.
What's that?
The secret to success, to long-term success, isn't just about how hard you train. It's all about how efficiently you can recover.
That is the core challenge in competitive sports,
So,
absolutely. We talk about exercise-induced fatigue, and the scientific community has a pretty clear definition.
right.
It's simply the physiological inability to maintain a specific intensity. The good news, though, is that it's reversible.
If you rest.
If you rest, exactly.
But resting is downtime. It's time you're not training. So the big question, the multi-billion-dollar question really, is can science give us a shortcut here? Can we speed that up?
Well, that's what we're looking at today.
Today, we are doing a deep dive into one of the most exciting high-tech recovery tools out there, hyperbaric oxygen therapy. You've probably heard it called HBOT.
And our source material for this is serious science. We're working from a recent systematic review and a meta-analysis.
So that means they're pooling data from a lot of different studies.
A lot of high-quality studies, yes. Specifically, they analyzed 15 different randomized controlled trials RCTs, which brought together data from 311 athletes. And the whole point was to see how HBOT really impacts recovery after exercise.
311 athletes, that's a pretty big sample. It should give us a clear picture. But we have to start with a big warning label on the source itself, right? This is a preliminary report.
A preprint, yes, that's a crucial distinction. It is a meta-analysis, so it's pooling really robust data. But the source document itself is very clear in its warning
What's the warning?
that these findings have not gone through the full peer review process yet. So while this gives us fantastic information and a great snapshot of the research, you really can't consider it conclusive clinical advice. Not yet.
Right. It's a look at where the science is heading. So keeping that caveat in mind, our mission today is pretty simple. We want to show you exactly where HBOT seems to have a real measurable effect compared to just, natural recovery.
And just as important, where the evidence is still murky, where it's just not consistent enough to rely on.
Focusing specifically on using it after you've already done the work. Okay, let's start with the basics. Hyperbaric oxygen therapy. It sounds incredibly high-tech, but what is it actually doing? It's more than just breathing from an oxygen tank, I assume.
Oh, much more. It's really about two factors working together. The first one is obvious from the name. You're breathing high concentration oxygen.
Usually through a mask or something.
Right. But the second factor is the key. You're doing this inside a chamber that is pressurized. It's above our normal atmospheric pressure.
And that added pressure, what does that do inside the body?
It creates what you could call a supersaturation effect in your blood. See, normally, oxygen is carried almost exclusively by hemoglobin.
In your red blood cells.
Right. But when you add pressure, which we measure in atmosphere's absolute, or ATA, you force way more oxygen to dissolve directly into the plasma.
So plasma. So the liquid part of the blood.
Exactly. So instead of waiting for the red blood cells to kind of ferry the oxygen around.
You've got it just floating free, ready to be absorbed anywhere.
Precisely. And that pressure extends the oxygen's diffusion distance. Think of it like this. Under pressure, that dissolved oxygen can reach cells deep inside swollen or damaged tissue much, much faster than it ever could normally.
You're basically turbocharging the entire delivery system.
That's a perfect way to put it.
Now, the paper mentioned that HBOT can be used in a few different ways in sports, but this review only looked at one specific timing.
Yes, that's important. They focused only on post-exercise intervention. So using it to treat fatigue and injuries after you're done.
What are the other ways? Just briefly.
Well, some use it for pre-exercise preconditioning to try and delay fatigue. And others have experimented with using it during exercise. But again, those weren't part of this analysis.
Got it. So what about the studies themselves? These 15 RCTs, were they good quality? What did a typical session look like?
The quality was quite high, actually. Most of them had what's called a Pedro score of 6 or higher, which basically means they have good, rigorous methodology.
And the athletes.
The 311 athletes were from all sorts of sports, generally high-level competitors, and crucially, the control groups were almost always just using natural recovery.
So we have a really clean comparison.
We do. And the protocol was pretty standard across the board, which helps. They generally used mild hyperbaric conditions, about 1.3 ATA.
What does that feel like, 1.3 ATA?
It's roughly the same pressure as being 10 feet underwater, so not extreme. And the sessions would last for about 60 to 90 minutes.
Okay, so the mechanism makes a lot of sense. Let's see if the data actually backs it up. We can start with the most immediate sign of recovery. Your heart. So, diving into these clear wins, did HBOT actually help with heart rate recovery?
It did, dramatically. The meta-analysis found a statistically significant positive effect. They reported something called an SMD, or standardized mean difference, of negative 4.3.
Okay, stop there. For listeners who aren't statisticians, a p-value that's highly significant and a big negative SMD, what does that actually mean for how certain we are?
It means we're very confident this wasn't just a random fluke. A p-value below 0.05 means there's less than a 5% chance the effect was random. And a high SMD like that means the difference between the two groups was just huge.
So the hearts of the athletes in the HBOT group returned to their normal resting rate much, much faster.
That's the takeaway. And the why is fascinating. It seems HBOT actively upregulates your parasympathetic nervous system.
That's the rest and digest system, right? The opposite of fight or flight.
Exactly. By boosting that, it helps restore your autonomic nervous system's balance. It's a foundational part of recovery.
So it's literally telling the body's control system, okay, the crisis is over, time to stand down and repair.
Precisely. And since we use things like heart rate variability to monitor long-term fatigue, this is a really strong sign that HBOT is restoring core function, not just masking symptoms.
All right, let's move from the heart to the chemical cleanup.
Yeah.
We've all felt that burn from intense exercise, which we associate with lactic acid. What did the data say about clearing out that metabolic waste?
Highly significant results here, too. HBOT showed a really remarkable effect on blood lactate recovery, what they call BLA. The SMD was negative 1.119.
So just as effective there.
Very. Lactate is a key byproduct of anaerobic metabolism. It's what happens when your muscles are screaming for oxygen they can't get.
Right.
By flooding the system with easily accessible oxygen, the therapy just speeds up the clearance and the breakdown of that lactate.
That makes perfect sense. But what about other signs of stress? The review also looked at something called blood urea nitrogen, or BUN.
Yeah, BUN is a fantastic marker for systemic stress. It's the final product of protein catabolism.
In simple terms.
It's basically protein wreckage. When you exercise for a really long time, your body can start breaking down its own muscle protein for fuel, and that raises your BUN levels.
Now, BUN is like a report from the cleanup crew on how much structural damage there is to deal with.
That's a great way to think of it. And yes, HBOT significantly improved BUN recovery. The data showed an SMD of negative 0.51.
And how is it doing that?
The evidence points to two things. First, it helps the kidneys excrete the urea faster. And second, it might improve what's called renal hypoxia, so low oxygen in the kidneys themselves, which lets them do their job better. It's helping the engine and the exhaust system at the same time.
Okay, this is where it gets really, really interesting for me. We're moving beyond the physical markers into the neuroendocrine system, your hormones. The analysis looked at the stress hormone, cortisol, and the building hormone, testosterone.
And the results were definitely not symmetrical. They were quite interesting. They saw a significant difference in cortisol recovery, an SMD of 0.77, which means that HBOT absolutely did help bring those elevated post-exercise cortisol levels back down to normal.
And cortisol is the body's big alarm signal, right? Tell the body to break things down to get energy. Getting that turned off quickly seems critical.
It is, but... And here's the other side of it. The analysis confirmed that HBOT did not accelerate testosterone recovery. There was no boost to the anabolic signal.
So it turns off the demolition signal, but it doesn't turn on the construction signal any faster. That seems like only half a win.
It does, unless you look at the ratio between them. That's the real insight.
The testosterone to cortisol ratio, the TC ratio.
That's the gold standard for your overall metabolic status. Testosterone builds things up anabolic, cortisol breaks things down catabolic, and that TC ratio showed a significant difference with HBOT.
Ah, I see. So even if you're not making more of the building hormone, by shutting down the stress hormone so effectively, you're still shifting the body's overall state back to one that favors repair.
You've returned the body to a more favorable metabolic environment, yes. You've sent the demolition crew home. That said, the researchers flagged a pretty important caveat here.
What was that?
The very low number of female participants across all of these studies.
I can imagine that would have a huge impact on hormonal data, given different cycles and baselines.
A tremendous impact. And while things like sport type and athletic level also play a part, that gender imbalance means these specific hormone findings need a lot more confirmation in properly balanced trials.
Let's shift from the lab results to, the actual human experience.
Yeah.
Did all this physiological improvement actually make the athletes feel any better?
Yes. Unequivocally, HBOT had a significant effect on subjective fatigue perception.
How they felt.
Exactly. They measured it on perceived exertion scales, and the SMD was enormous, negative 1.89.
Wow, that is a huge effect size for something subjective.
It's massive. And the reason it's probably multi-layered. You have all the real physiological benefits we've been talking about, but you also almost certainly have a psychological component, a soothing effect, or even a placebo effect that comes from getting a very specialized treatment.
So we've seen these powerful results for your heart, your metabolism, and how you feel.
Yeah?
But you mentioned earlier that the source found HBOT wasn't a silver bullet. Where did this powerful tool seem to hit a wall?
The wall was named creatine kinase, or CK. This enzyme is pretty much the go-to indicator for measuring deep, acute muscle fiber damage after exercise.
So when your muscle fibers actually get tiny tears in them, CK leaks out into your blood.
That's it. And the overall result from the meta-analysis on CK was...
Let me guess. Not great.
Inconclusive. They found no statistically significant difference between the HBOT group and the natural recovery group, a p-value of 0.28.
Okay, wait a minute. How can it be fixing the metabolism, clearing the waste, calming the stress response, but failing to consistently fix the actual tissue damage? That seems to be the one thing you'd really want it to do.
That is the inconsistency puzzle, and the study really digs into it. What they found was that the conclusions on CK were actually very unstable.
Unstable? What does that mean?
Well, they ran a sensitivity analysis, and here's the part that makes you scratch your head. If they removed just one single study from the entire pool, a study by an author named Braulio, the overall result for CK suddenly flipped.
No way.
Yes, it suddenly became statistically significant.
So one study was throwing the whole average off. That points to some major differences in the underlying data.
Huge heterogeneity, exactly. And it led the researchers to a theory that HBOT's effectiveness might really depend on the type of muscle damage you have.
Ah, so not all damage is the same.
The running hypothesis is this. If your damage is purely mechanical, like from heavy lifting, natural rest is probably fine, and HBOT doesn't add much. But
if the damage is from a lack of oxygen.
Exactly. If the damage is caused by localized hypoxia, making the muscle cell membranes more permeable, then HBOT intervention could potentially help repair that membrane and lower the CK levels. But because different sports create different kinds of damage, we don't have a consistent finding yet.
Did they try to find a sweet spot, like a certain pressure or a certain amount of time that worked best for CK?
They did. They ran subgroup analyses on all those variables, and the outcome was the same. No robust, consistent effect across the board for CK recovery. The tissue damage puzzle is still unsolved. And if we step back and look at the big picture, these inconsistencies, the CK problem, the hormonal details, they really highlight the limitations in this field right now.
You mean beyond this one study?
Yes. We see what's called high heterogeneity across the data. Those I values were high, 62 to 90%, which tells you the results from the individual studies were not all pointing in the exact same direction.
So even though the studies themselves were high quality, the variability suggests that while HBOT works, we haven't quite figured out how to make it work reliably for everything in every situation.
That's it, exactly. And the reasons are pretty practical. First, there's no single standard for the HBOT protocol. One study uses one pressure, another uses a different duration. That creates noise in the data.
And the gender bias we mentioned.
The gender bias, absolutely. And just the fact that different training creates different kinds of fatigue.
Right. You're trying to fix different problems with the same single tool.
Exactly. It seems to solve the cardiac and metabolic problems very reliably, but maybe not the deep structural repair issues every time.
So what does this mean for you, the listener, if you're an athlete or a trainer thinking about using this?
The findings confirm that HBOT is a powerful tool. It's demonstrably effective for getting your body back to metabolic balance, reducing inflammation, and improving heart function. But we have to be clear. We need much more standardized research, especially to figure out this muscle damage piece with CK and to really understand the gender-specific hormonal responses.
So looking forward, what did the source recommend? What's the future for HBOT in sports?
It really comes down to two words: personalization and integration. The researchers believe future work has to focus on creating tailored HBOT plans based on the specific sport, the specific athlete.
And in not just using it in isolation.
Critically not. They stress integrating HBOT with other recovery methods, nutrition, massage, you name it, to create a complete system. It's not a standalone magic bullet. It's a powerful part of a much larger recovery engine.
All right, so let's distill this all down. The key takeaways from our deep dive into hyperbaric oxygen therapy It provides a real, measurable boost to your cardiorespiratory recovery. Your heart rate gets back to normal faster.
And it's an excellent metabolic janitor. It cleans up lactate and blood urea nitrogen very effectively.
Plus, maybe most importantly for the athlete, it makes you feel dramatically better. That subjective feeling of fatigue goes down significantly.
And it's a big but it's direct benefit on repairing deep muscle fiber damage, the kind measured by creatine kinase, is still inconsistent and, frankly, inconclusive from the current data.
It seems to fix the systems that manage the recovery process, but maybe not the broken parts themselves, not every single time.
That's a good way to look at it.
Which brings us to a final provocative thought for you to consider. This analysis shows HBOT is a powerful physiological tool, but maybe its most undeniable benefit is on that subjective feeling of exhaustion. The authors even mention other non-invasive things like acupuncture for that. So, is the future of recovery technology less about finding one single cure-all and more about a smart combination of high-tech physiological tools like HBOT, paired with other approaches that specifically target the psychological side of recovery at the same time? Something to think about before your next big workout.